Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramhansa Yogananda. Chapter 40. I returned to India. Gratefully I was inhaling the blessed air of India. Our boat, Rajputana, docked on August 22nd, 1935, in the huge harbour of Bombay. Even this, my first day off the ship, was a foretaste of the year ahead. 12 months of ceaseless activity. Friends had gathered at the dock with garlands and greetings. Soon, at our suite in the Taj Mahal Hotel, there was a stream of reporters and photographers. Bombay was a city new to me. I found it energetically modern, with many innovations from the West. Palms line the spacious boulevards. Magnificent state structures vie for interest with ancient temples. Very little time was given to sightseeing, however. I was impatient, eager to see my beloved Guru and other dear ones. Consigning the Ford to a baggage car, our party soon was speeding eastward by train toward Calcutta. Our arrival at Howrah station found such an immense crowd assembled to greet us that for a while we were unable to dismount from the train. The young Maharaj of Kashim Bazar and my brother Bishnu headed the reception committee. I was unprepared for the warmth and magnitude of our welcome. Preceded by a line of automobiles and motorcycles, and amidst the joyous sound of drums and conch shells, Miss Bletch, Mr. Wright, and myself, flower garlanded from head to foot, drove slowly to my father's house. My aged parent embraced me as one returning from the dead. Long we gazed on each other, speechless with joy. Brothers and sisters, uncles, aunts and cousins, students and friends of years long past, were grouped around me, not a dry eye among us. Passed now into the archives of memory, the scene of loving reunion vividly endures, unforgettable in my heart. As for my meeting with Sri Yukteswar, words fail me. Let the following description from my secretary suffice. Quote, Today, filled with the highest anticipations, I drove Yoganandaji from Calcutta to Serampore. Mr. Wright recorded this in his travel diary. We passed by quaint shops, one of them the favorite eating haunt of Yoganandaji during his college days, and finally entered a narrow, walled lane. A sudden left turn, and there before us towered the simple but inspiring two-story ashram, its Spanish-style balcony jutting from the upper floor. The pervasive impression was that of peaceful solitude. In grave humility, I walked behind Yoganandaji into the courtyard within the hermitage walls. Hearts beating fast, we proceeded up some old cement steps, trod no doubt by myriads of truth-seekers. The tension grew keener and keener as on we strode. Before us, near the head of the stairs, quietly appeared the Great One, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, standing in the noble pose of a sage. My heart heaved and swelled as I felt myself blessed by the privilege of being in his sublime presence. Tears blurred my eager sight when Yoganandaji dropped to his knees and with bowed head offered his soul's gratitude and greeting, touching with his hand his Guru's feet and then, in humble obeisance, his own head. He rose then and was embraced on both sides of the bosom by Sri Yukteswarji. No words passed at the beginning, but the most intense feeling was expressed in the mute phrases of the soul. How their eyes sparkled and were fired with the warmth of renewed soul union. A tender vibration surged through the quiet patio, and even the sun eluded the clouds to add a sudden blaze of glory. On bended knee before the Master, I gave my own unexpressed love and thanks, touching his feet calloused by time and service, and receiving his blessing. I stood then and faced two beautiful, deep eyes, smoldering with introspection, yet radiant with joy. We entered his sitting room, whose whole side opened to the outer balcony first seen from the street. The Master braced himself against a worn davenport, sitting on a covered mattress on the cement floor. Yoganandaji and I sat near the Guru's feet, with orange-colored pillows to lean against and ease our positions on the straw mat. I tried to penetrate the Bengali conversation between the two Swamijis, for English, I discovered, is null and void when they are together, although Swamiji Maharaj, as the great Guru is called by others, can, and often does, speak it. But I perceived the saintliness of the Great One through his heart-warming smile and twinkling eyes. One quality easily discernible in his merry, serious conversation is a decided positiveness in statement, the mark of a wise man who knows he knows because he knows God. His great wisdom, strength of purpose, and determination are apparent in every way. Studying him reverently from time to time, I noted that he is of large athletic stature, hardened by the trials and sacrifices of renunciation. His poise is majestic. A decidedly sloping forehead, as if seeking the heavens, dominates his divine countenance. He has a rather large and homely nose, with which he amuses himself in idle moments, flipping and wiggling it with his fingers like a child. His powerful dark eyes are haloed by an ethereal blue ring. His hair, parted in the middle, begins as silver and changes to streaks of silvery gold and silvery black, ending in ringlets at his shoulders. His beard and moustache are scant and thinned out, yet seem to enhance his features, and, like his character, are deep and light at the same time. He has a jovial and rollicking laugh, which comes from deep in his chest, causing him to shake and quiver throughout his body, very cheerful and sincere. His face and stature are striking in their power, as are his muscular fingers. He moves with a dignified tread and erect posture. He was clad simply in the common dhoti and shirt, both once dyed in a strong ochre color, but now a faded orange. Glancing about, I observed that this rather dilapidated room suggested the owner's non-attachment to material comforts. The weather-stained white walls of the long chamber were streaked with fading blue pastel. At one end of the room hung a picture of Lahiri Mahashai, garlanded in simple devotion. There was also an old picture showing Yoganandaji as he had first arrived in Boston, standing with the other delegates to the Congress of Religions. I noted a quaint concurrence of modernity and antiquation. A large cut-glass candlelight chandelier was covered with cobwebs through disuse, and on the wall was a bright, up-to-date calendar. The whole room emanated a fragrance of peace and calmness. Beyond the balcony I could see coconut trees towering over the hermitage in silent protection. It is interesting to observe that the Master has merely to clap his hands together, and before finishing he is served or attended by some small disciple. Incidentally, I am much attracted to one of them, a thin lad named Prafula, with long black hair to his shoulders, a most penetrating pair of sparkling black eyes, and a heavenly smile. His eyes twinkle as the corners of his mouth rise, like the stars in the crescent moon appearing at twilight. Swami Sri Yukteswar's joy is obviously intense at the return of his, quote, product, and he seems to be somewhat inquisitive about the product's product. However, predominance of the wisdom aspect in the Great One's nature hinders his outward expression of feeling. Yogananda presented him with some gifts, as is the custom when the disciple returns to his guru. We sat down later to a simple but well-cooked meal. All the dishes were vegetable and rice combinations. Sri Yukteswar was pleased at my use of a number of Indian customs, finger eating, for example. After several hours of flying Bengali phrases and the exchange of warm smiles and joyful glances, we paid obeisance at his feet, bade adieu with a pranam, and departed for Calcutta with an everlasting memory of a sacred meeting and greeting. Although I write chiefly of my external impressions of him, yet I was always conscious of the true basis of the saint, his spiritual glory. I felt his power, and shall carry that feeling as my divine blessing. End quote. From America, Europe, and Palestine, I had brought many presents for Sri Yukteswar. He received them smilingly, but without remark. For my own use, I had bought in Germany a combination umbrella cane. In India, I decided to give the cane to Master. This gift I appreciate indeed. My Guru's eyes were turned on me with affectionate understanding as he made the unwanted comment. From all the presents, it was the cane that he singled out to display to visitors. Master, please permit me to get a new carpet for the sitting room. I had noted that Sri Yukteswar's tiger skin was placed over a torn rug. Do so if it pleases you. My Guru's voice was not enthusiastic. Behold, my tiger mat is nice and clean. I am monarch in my own little kingdom. Beyond it is the vast world, interested only in externals. As he uttered these words, I felt the years roll back. Once again I am a young disciple, purified in the daily fires of chastisement. As soon as I could tear myself away from Serampore and Calcutta, I set out with Mr. Wright for Ranchi. What a welcome there, a veritable ovation. Tears stood in my eyes as I embraced the selfless teachers who had kept the banner of the school flying during my 15 years' absence. The bright faces and happy smiles of the residential and day students were ample testimony to the worth of their many-sided school and yoga training. Yet, alas, the Ranchi institution was in dire financial difficulties. Sir Manindra Chandanundi, the old Maharaja, whose Kashim Bazar Palace had been converted into the central school building, and who had made many princely donations, was now dead. Many free, benevolent features of the school were now seriously endangered for lack of sufficient public support. I had not spent years in America without learning some of its practical wisdom, its undaunted spirit before obstacles. For 1 week I remained in Ranchi, wrestling with critical problems. Then came interviews in Calcutta with prominent leaders and educators, a long talk with the young Maharaja of Kashim Bazar, a financial appeal to my father, and, lo, the shaky foundations of Ranchi began to be righted. Many donations, including a huge check, arrived in the nick of time from my American students. Within a few months after my arrival in India, I had the joy of seeing Ranchi School legally incorporated. My lifelong dream of a permanently endowed educational center stood fulfilled. That vision had guided me in the humble beginnings in 1917 with a group of 7 boys. In the decade since 1935, Ranchi has enlarged its scope far beyond the boys' school. Widespread humanitarian activities are now carried on there in the Shamacharan Lahiri Mahashaya mission. The school, or Yogoda Satsanga Brahmacharya Vidyalaya, conducts outdoor classes in grammar and high school subjects. The residential students and day scholars also receive vocational training of some kind. The boys themselves regulate most of their activities through autonomous committees. Very early in my career as an educator, I discovered that boys who impishly delight in outwitting a teacher will cheerfully accept disciplinary rules that are set by their fellow students. Never a model pupil myself, I had a ready sympathy for all boyish pranks and problems. Sports and games are encouraged. The fields resound with hockey and football practice. Ranchi students often win the cup at competitive events. The outdoor gymnasium is known far and wide. Muscle recharging through willpower is the Yogoda feature, mental direction of life energy to any part of the body. The boys are also taught asanas, postures, sword and lati stick play, and jiu-jitsu. The Yogoda health exhibitions at the Ranchi Vidyalaya have been attended by thousands. Instruction in primary subjects is given in Hindi to the Kols, Santals and Mandas, Aboriginal tribes of the province. Classes for girls only have been organized in nearby villages. The unique feature at Ranchi is the initiation into Kriya Yoga. The boys daily practice their spiritual exercises, engage in Gita chanting, and are taught by precept and example the virtues of simplicity, self-sacrifice, honor, and truth. Evil is pointed out to them as being that which produces misery, good as those actions which result in true happiness. Evil may be compared to poisoned honey, tempting but laden with death. Overcoming restlessness of body and mind by concentration techniques has achieved astonishing results. It is no novelty at Ranchi to see an appealing little figure, aged 9 or 10 years, sitting for an hour or more in unbroken pose, the unwinking gaze directed to the spiritual eye. Often the picture of these Ranchi students has returned to my mind, as I observed collegians over the world who are hardly able to sit through one class period. Ranchi lies 2,000 feet above sea level. The climate is mild and equable. The 25-acre site, by a large bathing pond, includes one of the finest orchards in India, 500 fruit trees, mango, guava, lychee, jackfruit, date. The boys grow their own vegetables and spin at their charkas. A guest house is hospitably opened for Western visitors. The Ranchi Library contains numerous magazines and about 1,000 volumes in English and Bengali, donations from the West and the East. There is a collection of the scriptures of the world. A well-classified museum displays archaeological, geological, and anthropological exhibits, trophies to a great extent of my wanderings over the Lord's varied earth. The charitable hospital and dispensary of the Lahiri Mahashaya mission, with many outdoor branches in distant villages, have already ministered to 150,000 of India's poor. The Ranchi students are trained in first aid and have given praiseworthy service for their province at tragic times of flood or famine. In the orchard stands a Shiva temple with a statue of the Blessed Master Lahiri Mahashaya. Daily prayers and scripture classes are held in the garden under the mango bowers. Branch high schools, with the residential and yoga features of Ranchi, have been opened and are now flourishing. These are the Yogoda Satsanga Vidyapit School for boys at Lakhanpur in Bihar, and the Yogoda Satsanga High School and Hermitage at Ejmalichak in Midnapur. A stately Yogoda Math was dedicated in 1939 at Dakshineshwar, directly on the Ganges. Only a few miles north of Calcutta, the new hermitage offers a haven of peace for city dwellers. Suitable accommodations are available for Western guests, and particularly for those seekers who are intensely dedicating their lives to spiritual realization. The activities of the Yoga Math include a fortnightly mailing of self-realization fellowship teachings to students in various parts of India. It is needless to say that all these educational and humanitarian activities have required the self-sacrificing service and devotion of many teachers and workers. I do not list their names here because they are so numerous, but in my heart each one has a lustrous niche. Inspired by the ideals of Lahiri Mahashai, these teachers have abandoned promising worldly goals to serve humbly and to give greatly. Mr. Wright formed many fast friendships with Ranchi boys. Clad in a simple dhoti, he lived for a while among them. At Ranchi, Calcutta, Serampore, everywhere he went, my secretary, who has a vivid gift of description, hauled out his travel diary to record his adventures. One evening I asked him a question. "Dick, what is your impression of India?" "Peace," he said thoughtfully. "The racial